quality so that the services can be effective, while also ensuring that services does not expose the user to financial hardship. There are three major things here, okay? And if you don't know how to define universal health coverage, once you get these three things that are implied, first one is that there will be equity in access to health services. Poor, rich, sick, healthy, old, young like me, you know, everybody will have access to services that they need. The second one is that it's not just any services. The services must be of good quality. And the third one is that in using the services they need, and the services that we have said must be of good quality, they must not suffer any financial burden by doing that. So those are the three things that is involved in universal health coverage. Now, there are three dimensions to this. I think I'll just mention that, and I will go to where we are right now, or maybe one or two things. When you are thinking of universal health coverage, it's a pity we won't be able to look at the diagram. That will waste time. There are three dimensions to it. Or if you like, where a country is pursuing universal health coverage, there are three choices that they have to make. The first one is who are to be covered. Okay? Who are to be covered? We call that the breadth of universal health coverage. And the second question is, what services should be provided? Okay, is it just primary health care, or you add secondary care, and so on and so forth? We call that the the depth of the service, of UHC. And the third one is what proportion of the cost of services should be borne by the patient. And we call that the height of universal health coverage. So those are three tough decisions. And you can see that this is why we need high political commitment in order to be able to get there. Now, let me stop there. When you get my slides, you can learn more about universal health coverage. I think I'm more interested in where we are. And I am going to be brutally frank with you. And whatever I say is a accumulation of many things. It has happened over the last 15 years. So I am not blaming any government for where we are today. But we need to admit where we are before we can make progress. And this is what I plead. If the politicians are here and the National Assemblymen, this is what I want to say to them. I think where we are, and I will show you in a minute, we cannot clap hands. That is, we cannot celebrate. We cannot beat drums. We need to admit that we still have a long way to go. And I say this with all seriousness. When you look at the data for many African countries, and you look at some of the countries that are not as resource endowed as Nigeria, then of course we worry like I worry about where we are. And I think some of the things we say are more of rhetorics than the actual situation on ground. And you will see in a minute. Now, before I go into our scorecard, and I will show you, let me say that over the years, a number of policy, legal frameworks have been developed, okay? And I'll just mention a few of them. One is the launch of the formal sector program of national health insurance. It took place here. I think it was over there. That was probably one of my happiest days as minister in this country. And I could see the president very, very highly elated, President Obasanjo. That was when we launched June 6, 2005. And I remember I was here speaking, and I did all the calculations, and I made some assumptions, of course, including the ceteris paribus, that we economics always, the jargon that we always use, all other things being equal, they are never equal. I then stood here before the audience, and I said, by the grace of God, in 2025, we will achieve universal coverage. That was 20, I gave the country 20 years. Yeah, of course, when it was the turn of my boss to speak, he was highly elated, and he said, why are you laughing? He said, you had a entire Lambo. He said 2025. But that's him. I, as president, will say 2015. And those who are from NHIS, you remember that was the mandate, presidential mandate, that you achieve universal coverage by 2015. I'm giving this background so that you can realize why a person like me would be very sad about where we are. So we launched that. I will still come back to it. Then there are initiatives that have been taken to revitalize primary health care, because we have seen that if the primary health care system in Nigeria is working, given the health conditions, what the major health problems of Nigerians, just like in many developing countries, an effective and efficient primary health care system can take care of at least 80% of the problems of the population. And that is why we feel if we have a strong primary health care system that is effective, well-funded, it will be able to solve quite a lot about our problem. So efforts have been made to revitalize that. Over the years, you have the MDG NHIS MCH project that was implemented by NHIS, the National Midwives Services Scheme, the Save 1 Million Lives, the PHC Under One Roof, which is still ongoing, the National State Health Investment Program. You remember the Subsidy Reinvestment and Empowerment Program, SureP MCH, and the New Revitalization Program, PHC, that was launched by Mr. President on January, I think, 16 or 17 last year. So that was one. But in spite of all this, we must still admit that the primary healthcare system is still weak. Okay? So,
you have been listening to the lecture by the former Minister of Health, Professor Pt.2 Lambo. And of course, he has been taking a look at universal health coverage for Nigeria. Of course, there you heard him talk about the fact that the plan was that we would achieve universal health coverage by 2015. And we have 12 more years to the target. And of course, he says he's being brutally frank about where we are, and says we cannot celebrate because the data from countries less endowed than Nigeria should make us worry. And he says a lot of rhetoric is being carried around in Nigeria, but the fact is that 2030 is just around the corner, 12 more years to go, and looking at some of the things that the country needs to do to achieve universal health coverage. All right, so you have been listening to the 58th AGC ADM of the Nigerian Medical Association, the annual general conference and delegates meeting. Channels Television goes back to regular programming, which will be Business Incorporated. I am Kayla Megwa. Good afternoon.
watching a live Channels television event.